to Canada India Insight, episode number 10. We have a very special guest with us today, the national leader of the Green Party of Canada, Annamie Paul. For the first time in 13 years, the Green Party has got a new leadership, a fresh face, and a chance to reintroduce themselves to Canada. Ms. Paul is the first Black person and a Jewish woman to be elected as a leader of a major party. Although she could not win a seat in the House of Commons yet, she has increased her vote share substantially, in the Toronto Centre riding, winning 32.7 percentage of votes in the October by-election, as against 7% in the 2019 federal election. That's quite remarkable in what is considered the safest seat for the Liberal Party. Maybe not so anymore. Annamie Paul has a Master's of Public Affairs at Princeton University and a Bachelor of Law at the University of Ottawa. She has worked as a director for a leading conflict prevention NGO in Brussels, as an advisor at the International Criminal Court in The Hague, and as a political officer in Canada's mission to the European Union. She has served on the board and advised a number of international NGOs. Prior to becoming the Green Party leader, she was the international affairs critic in the Green Party of Canada's shadow cabinet. You speak 4 languages, English, French, Catalan, and Spanish. Canada India Insight is also a monthly online publication produced by Impact Media and Events Corporation and supported by Canada India USA Development Forum, a Canadian not-for-profit organization. Together, we host an annual Canada India Insight conference, a Canada India USA trilateral conference, an annual Celebrating Success Gala, an IT conference, plenty of networking events, webinars, and many other initiatives. So before we begin the conversation with you, Ms. Paul, I would just like to quickly thank all our IMEC sponsors, Tangentia, Surti Sweet Mart, Seneca College, and ICICI Bank Canada, as well as all the members of the Canada India USA Development Forum for their support. So with that, please welcome leader of the Green Party of Canada, Ms. Annamie Paul.
Hello, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you very much for hosting me.
My pleasure. So let me start with the elephant in the room first.
Okay.
I prefer to address the more difficult questions first,
Okay, okay.
so that you can relax a bit afterwards.
Okay.
So as you know, environment and climate change are now regular features in any election debate, in Canada, US, and elsewhere, plus in almost all corporate boardrooms and in their long-term vision discussions. So despite such a huge awareness of this issue, the Green Party still has only 3 MPs out of 338 in the House of Commons, 2 from British Columbia and 1 from New Brunswick. And if I can say, a negligible presence in any provincial legislature anywhere in Canada. So what do you think is not working? The message, the messenger, or the way the message was being delivered?
Well, just to I guess to push back a little bit, we should remember that in Prince Edward Island, the Green Party is the official opposition. So there they have an important presence in that legislature. And until recently, both in British Columbia and also New Brunswick, they held the balance of power. But you're absolutely right. We have a very small number of MLAs across the country, and our caucus is very small. And there's no point in trying to deny that. In the last election, one of the things that we know happened is that many people, once again, they voted strategically. They voted against, something as opposed to for something. Many people were concerned about particularly those who voted Liberal were concerned about the Conservatives winning. And so they chose to vote strategically, even though they weren't very excited about the person they were voting for, the party they were voting for. So I believe that one of the big things for the Green Party is that we need to give people more reasons to vote for us than to vote against another party. And this moment of pandemic especially has given us that opportunity, because the policies, you're right, everyone knows our green policies, but they also are now getting to know our social policies, things about how we can protect people better, things like improving long-term care in this country, creating a guaranteed livable income, universal pharmacare. And so they're looking again, and definitely having a new leader helps as well, because it means that people are curious, they want to know more about the party. So I'm very hopeful that if we do our job connecting with people in Canada, that they're going to be excited about us as an option, and we're going to get more votes the next time.
Sure. All right. So any drastic changes compared to the previous leadership? I mean, you have any creative, new, bold ideas
But
to
the
take the
pandemic,
party to the voters?
the pandemic has changed, has transformed our society. And so even when I was running in the leadership race, I was talking a lot about how we were going to, how we should bring in policies that were going to protect us now and in the future. And some of them, you know, the Green Party policies, the ones that we have are very, very innovative. Most people, as you say, they focus on our climate policies, and that's very important because it is an existential crisis. But we have very innovative policies on how we can complete our social safety net. And so for me, I'm going to be spending just as much time talking about, you know, some of the things that I just mentioned, how we can have a guaranteed livable income, true affordable housing, you know, how we can make sure that every person who wants to go to university can afford to go to university, pharmacare. And so, you know, we are, I always call us the ideas factory, you know. When we see that there's an issue or a problem that is not being properly addressed, we are always generating new and innovative ideas to solve those.
Sure. I'll come back to all those issues a bit later.
Okay.
So now the Canada-US relations were
Mm.
a little strained, to put it mildly, during President Trump. Now, President-elect Biden's views on Keystone XL pipeline, you know, on pipelines and oil and gas sector in general, will create a lot of anxieties in Alberta and Saskatchewan, to put it mildly. Premier Jason Kenney also, of course, you know, must be paying a close attention now. So where do you see Canada-US relations under the Biden administration overall?
The United States is a very important partner for Canada, and so we always need to be trying to have a strong relationship with them. That doesn't mean, just to be clear, that we don't have our own independent foreign policy, our independent views, but we should always be trying to find areas of cooperation. And having President-elect Biden as the new leader in the United States should help, because there are many things that, first, he knows our country very well. He has spent a lot of time in Canada. That always helps. The vice president-elect lived in Canada for, I believe, somewhere between 5 and 7 years when she was growing up. So that's very substantial. And so they understand our country, and that's important. And so I hope that we will have a partner, particularly on the climate emergency. You know, canceling the pipeline is a very good step. He has talked about bringing in carbon border tariffs, which if they do, then we will also definitely have to do as well. And so that, and then they also have talked about rejoining and re-engaging with international organizations like the United Nations, like the Paris Agreement, World Trade Organization. And so that's something we can work with. And so I believe that our government and the president and his administration should find many, many things that we can cooperate on.
Okay. So how moving from that to a bit more locally, How important is it for you to be in the House of Commons, especially at a time like this, when hundreds of billions of dollars are flowing from Ottawa with not much oversight, the ongoing VE controversy, and a federal election that may come within the next few months?
Well, well, first, as you said, we might have an election in the next few months. And so for me, if there is only a short period between now and the next election, the best thing that I can be doing is what I'm doing right now with you, which is having conversations
Yeah,
with people in Canada and getting helping them get to know me, get to know what the Green Party is proposing, getting them to look again at the Green Party and to reconsider us. And we have a very good caucus. You know, we're very lucky that Elizabeth May, who was our previous leader, she has a seat. We have a caucus that is very, very active, very committed to their work. And so they represent us very well until the time that I'm able to enter Parliament. And as you said, you know, we may have an election soon, so that might be very, very, very soon. But in the meantime, I have a lot of work to do, having conversations all across the country with people, recruiting great candidates, helping to develop our platform for the next election. And, you know, very strong leaders, for instance, like Jack Layton, they spent a number of years outside of Parliament before they entered. And the work that they did during that period was critical for their party. So I can do very good things in Parliament, but I know I can do very excellent work also until I get into Parliament.
sure. So the pandemic, as you know, has destroyed thousands of businesses and seriously impacted the revenue for all levels of government, city, province, and federal. So as you were just saying about the various, platform issues that you were just talking about, your party platform, I just went through it recently again. It talks about national pharmacare, dental care programs, guaranteed livable income, investments in the cooperative housing sector, reinvesting in public transportation and the national rail network, increase federal funding for pedestrian, cycling, car sharing infrastructure, and mandating energy retrofits for all buildings by 2030, among many other ambitious, things
Mhm.
that you are talking about. So all good, I mean, on paper, but where is the money going to come from when all three levels of government are broke and private businesses are also facing severe existential threats from this pandemic?
Well, first, in 2019, when we put out that platform, we were the only party to have our platform fully costed by the Parliamentary Budget Office. You know, we were the first. We were the first, and we did it most thoroughly to show people exactly how we were going to pay for it. And it definitely was not going to be through more taxes on small businesses or on individuals, you know, middle class and even upper middle class individuals. We proposed taxing some people who are not some institutions, let's say, that have not been taxed at all before, some sectors. So, for instance, we know that the big technology companies in Canada don't pay any taxes, despite using many resources in this country and benefiting from the infrastructure of our country. They pay no taxes. The corporate tax rate in this country is one of the lowest amongst the wealthy countries in the world. You know, the capital gains, that that is tax free is really unacceptable. Most people don't have the good luck of being able to earn capital gains in the first place. And so we talked about those kind of sources. Again, we're not talking about raising taxes on average Canadians or on small businesses. And then also, finding tax havens and making sure that people who are hiding their revenue abroad also pay their fair share. Now that we're in the pandemic, and as you said, we are spending hundreds of billions of dollars, and we're going to be spending hundreds of billions more to stimulate our economy once we have an effective treatment for COVID. That money should be invested in the things that you just mentioned, because those are the things that are going to create the prosperity of the future. If people are healthy, if people are well educated, if we have a proper national transportation system.
Yeah, sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah,
Oh,
sorry, we missed the last part. Sorry, we missed
did
the
it
last
did,
part
did it
actually.
did it
The
cut out?
recording, I mean, the audio was not. Yeah, yeah. So
It
if you
cut
can
out.
repeat the last part. Sorry.
Okay, so the last thing I was saying was that we are going to be spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the years to come to recover from this pandemic. And the question is, how do we spend it? What is the best way we can spend it so that we can establish the economy of the future, build the jobs of the future, and the things that you mentioned? Those are really the way to do it. The countries that have the most complete social safety nets, those are the countries that are the most productive, and that generate the most revenue, and therefore generate the taxes that we need to support our societies. And so investing in things like healthcare, education, infrastructure, these are very, very good investments. These are the best investments that a country can make in order to secure their future economic prosperity. So that is why we are talking about that. And there's no question that that is our vision for the future. And it's one that we share with other countries. The European Union also is investing in the same ways.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand, but that doesn't answer the question. Where is the money going to come from?
Well, the money that we're investing, first, it's important for people to understand that this money is definitely going to be spent. When you have an economy that is basically being put into a self-induced coma that has had a very big stop, the way that ours has, you need to stimulate it. And the way that you do that is by spending hundreds of billions of dollars. The money so
We are
far
again
has
having
been.
audio issues.
Is it on? My connection seems fine. My connection seems fine. Is yours?
Yeah, we are still having some audio issues. I mean, so we missed this answer also. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Um, so we will be spending. All of the parties have agreed, and across the world, wealthy countries have said they will be spending historic amounts of money to recover from the pandemic, to stimulate the economy, to get it out of this state that it's in right now, to repair the damage. And so our government has been, the Bank of Canada has been lending money to the government in order to pay for these programs. And this has been happening across the world. All of the major economies in the world, their central banks are loaning the money in order to support the investments that they're making. And so the money comes from there. And if we're going to be spending that much money, we have to spend it very wisely so that when it comes time to pay it back, or if interest rates go up, or if inflation goes up, that we have invested it in ways that we can generate the revenue and the prosperity to pay for these investments. So the money is coming from our bank, the Bank of Canada, and it's an investment that we're going to make in our future.
Sure. So that's coming from the recovery fund, as far as I understand. I mean, anyway, so we'll leave it at that. Another major issue Yeah, you can hear
It
me?
cut. I can hear you now. It cut out. I don't know where the. I
Kind of
normally never have any
froze a bit.
problems. I've never have any problems with my connection. I don't know if it's where it's
Mhm.
coming from, but I heard the last few words and then it cut out for a few seconds.
Sure, no problem. So let's touch base upon another major issue. As you know, it's increasingly becoming a serious problem for everybody, including Canada.
Hmm.
As leader of a national party, how do you think
Oh, I missed the last part of that question.
yes, can you hear me now?
I can.
Yes, so let me repeat the question.
Okay.
China is increasingly becoming a serious problem for everybody, including Canada. As leader of a national party, how do you think Canada should deal with China?
Well, I'm very concerned. The Green Party is very concerned to see the ejection of the pro-democracy parliamentarians that happened this week. When I was the foreign affairs critic for the Green Party of Canada, I also wrote several statements condemning what I see and our party sees as the erosion of civil liberties in Hong Kong, and the undermining of the one country, two systems policy, which was the foundation for China coming back, for Hong Kong coming back into China. And so it's very important for Canada to make sure that we have a very independent voice when it comes to China and our relations, that we seek to build strong alliances with other countries as a counterweight to China. And that we recognize that we have not been successful in our policy of liberalizing trade with China in order to liberalize civil liberties in China. And that we try to work with human rights defenders in that country and around the world to make sure that China respects civil liberties and fundamental human rights. And of course, we continue to press for the release of the two Michaels. That is something that we're very concerned about. But we really need to make sure that we do all we can to have a very independent policy with respect to China. And that partially means we cannot be so dependent upon China for trade.
Well, apparently, whatever Canada has been doing, it has not been working.
That's true.
And that was very evident with in the way the Chinese ambassador spoke last month, widely criticized by all parties. Erin O'Toole even called for recalling the ambassador. So I mean, something needs to change,
yes.
right? The message has to change. The action has to change. So, what would you suggest? What should we do that will send a direct message? That Canada now means action. It's not just talk anymore.
Well, I mean, first, as I said, it's very hard to have an independent voice when you are so entangled in terms of trade. And so Canada should continue the work in building relationships and trade partnerships with countries that have much better records on human rights and on the protection of civil liberties. That gives you, when we disentangle ourselves to a certain extent with China, that will give us more freedom to speak freely. We have many citizens that have dual citizenship. They have passports for here, and they're also residents of Hong Kong. We have to make sure that we always are speaking very strongly about them and protecting their rights, even when they're in the territories of Hong Kong, and make sure that they have the option of returning to Canada if it's no longer safe for them to be in Hong Kong. Canada also needs to work. Yeah.
Sorry, for the Canadians in Hong Kong, you mean?
For the Canadians in Hong Kong, that's right. We need to make sure that if it ever becomes unsafe for them to come, that they have the option of being evacuated to Canada as quickly as possible. And, the way that Canada, because we're a middle power, the way that we have an impact on big, a superpower like China is really by building coalitions with other countries around the world. Multilateral institutions are one of the ways, and working with them is one of the ways Canada has been able to have a stronger impact on big powers. And so that's something that we need to return to. We have turned away from that to a certain extent. And the more that we can turn back to multilateral institutions and coalition building, the more likely it is that we're able to influence China and get them to change the policies that we disagree with.
Sure. So in terms of the pandemic again, do you believe the lockdowns have helped more or hurt more?
I believe that we should have had a national strategy from the very beginning. Having 13 different approaches, because every province and every territory has their own approach to the pandemic, has been confusing. The mixed messages has been confusing. We do not have a coordinated national strategy, and it has meant that we have had more deaths and more illness than we should have had. And so whether we have a lockdown anywhere in this country should only depend on what the science is telling us and what our health officials are telling us. It should not depend on politics. It should be prioritized over everything, including the economy, and we haven't seen that happening. And it's meant that, for instance, Canada's infection rates is 50 times higher than New Zealand, for instance. So we've lost people in this country unnecessarily because we have not had enough cooperation between our federal and provincial governments, deciding when to lock down, when not to lock down. And there has not been enough respect for the science and our health officials about when we should lock down.
I think several Canadians, have some trust issues now. I would say credibility factor for Canada's chief medical officer as well, herself.
Oh,
So do you think Canada deserves someone better than Dr. Tem?
I believe that I have full confidence in Dr. Tam. There's only so much that our chief medical officer can do if the advice is not being followed. This is a very, very difficult.
She has been sending out very mixed, difficult, different sort of messages, every few days.
Well, the messages change with the science. I think that people in Canada, including myself, I have not seen being in the same room with my mother for many, many weeks because she's 84 and she's at risk of catching COVID because of underlying health conditions. And so, this is something that impacts me also personally. My father also died in long-term care at the end of May as well. And part of the reason for that also was because we're in this pandemic. But I understand that because we have never confronted this virus before, that every few days the information will change, the knowledge will change. Something that we thought was correct at the beginning of the month, we may learn that we may learn it's not correct at the end of the month. And that doesn't mean that at the time she was saying those things that wasn't correct. It just means that knowledge is changing. And so it's a very hard job. I don't think that anyone could be doing it better. And it's important for the Prime Minister to say regularly that he has confidence in her, he has confidence in our public health officials so that people can trust the advice that she's giving.
Sure. So that brings us to the last question.
Okay.
Canada-India relations hit a rough patch during Prime Minister Trudeau's first term. But now there is a flurry of high-level interactions and bilateral engagement, which all points to a more positive resetting of the bilateral relations. So what is your engagement with India, if any?
Well, my engagement with India at the moment is only through the Indo-Canadian community here. I'll use this since it's my last question to say first greetings from the Green Party of Canada, and to say that we really want to engage with the Indo-Canadian community. I would love to see members of the community running for the Green Party as candidates. I would love to see members of the community joining the Green Party, serving as senior staff in the Green Party. It's very important to me that our party reflects Canada. And so my first job, even before thinking about foreign relations and international relations, is making sure that the needs of the Indo-Canadian community here are very well represented. Because whether it's foreign accreditation, which is something that impacts the community I come from, and I also know impacts the Indo-Canadian community, whether it's the fact that both of our communities have had higher rates of infection from COVID during the pandemic, or some of the other things that we discussed. Those are things that I want to know how the community feels, and I want to work with the community on. So I am hoping that you're going to invite me back many times. And I definitely am going to be doing everything that I can to reach out to the community and to let them know that the Green Party welcomes their talent, their innovation, their ideas. And if you want to see those things reflected in our policies, then you should come and talk to me.
Wonderful. So anything else you wish to add that I
Just
have
again,
missed or that you want to?
no, first, just to
Yeah,
thank you very much for the excellent questions and for the invitation. This is a very difficult moment for all of us across the country, and we need to get through it together. We need to make sure that we're doing all we can to support each other. And and for me, in terms of whether if in 10 years, if I look back and ask myself, was I a good leader? It will be only the answer will only be yes if I can say that I did all I could to make sure that every person in Canada was protected during this period and in the future. And so I'm very excited to work with the community on that. And my door is always open.
yeah, wonderful. So that was a very interesting conversation indeed.
Yes.
So thank you for joining Canada India Insight today. Let us work together, as you said, for a healthier, greener, and better future for both
Mhm.
Canada and India, and hope to see many more green MPs in the
Yes.
House very soon.
Yes.
So thank you once again.